Hey, you guys. Welcome to Craftsy Live. I'm Robin Miller. I'm super excited to be with you here today to make my crispy pork chops. I tried to tease you all with the recipe with the picture of the crunchy pork chop and the buttery soft inside so that you would come join me today. And I guess if you're here, you survived the election. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm kind of glad to be on the other side of it so we can all be friends again and cook together and start thinking about the holidays, because I know this is one of my favorite times of the year. I think about having my kids home and cooking and bringing food to friends and stuff. So this recipe is one of those that you could do during the holidays. If you have guests over, company over, it's perfect. It's easy. A lot of people love pork, and it can be prepped ahead and made. I, in fact, prepped ahead for today, so I can tell you exactly how I did it. So I'm going to show you how to make this dish, this crispy pork chops. And I don't do a lot of pork. I feel like I don't do enough pork on my website and in social media. So I'm going to try to be a little bit more cognizant of that and get more out there, because as soon as I post something with pork, everybody goes wild. So before we start, I want to remind you that I love to take questions. It doesn't have to be about this recipe. It could be about maybe your holiday cooking. Maybe you have questions about things coming up that you want to know. Can I make this? Can I do that? Can I do it in advance? I'd love to answer those kinds of questions. You can always find me afterwards if you wanted to say something and you forgot, at my website, Robin Miller Cooks. And I'd love to make these live shows kind of interactive and like that you're actually sitting in my kitchen. So a quick background for those of you, maybe if you don't know me, I'll just give you a quickie. If you do, sorry, I'm going to hear it again. But I've been a food writer, a cookbook author, and a nutritionist forever, since 1990. So that's a long time. I have 11 cookbooks, including a New York Times bestseller. I was on Food Network for 5 years with a show called Quick Fix Meals. I have a lot of content on Craftsy. I have everything from using pantry ingredients to international comfort food to baking like a pro. So look for my classes. I have a lot of content on Craftsy, and I'm filming more in January. I'm doing 2 brand new classes. So I'm super excited about that. And you should let me know what kinds of things you're looking for so I can keep that in mind. What else? I have a column in Gannett, which means it goes out to all the local newspapers nationwide every week, sometimes twice a week. That's including USA Today and all your local papers, whether it's the Baltimore Sun or the San Francisco Chronicle, Philadelphia Inquirer. What else? Mom of 2 young men in college, and I live in Pennsylvania. So any more questions about me, anything you want to know, I will probably share it depending on what the question is. So bring those questions on. They're going to be on the lower screen for me. So if you see me looking like that, it means I'm looking for your questions. So I'll start with my crispy pork chop recipe. Let's get going. I'm going to give you tips along the way. If I miss something, just shout out, because you probably have the recipe that you could be following along. So we start with the pork chops. What the recipe calls for is boneless loin chops and the thicker cut, like an inch cut. So this is what I want you to use. See how thick they are? They're not the thin ones, and they're the center cut loin chops without the bone. Yes, if you want to purchase them with the bone, you certainly could do this. They just take a little bit longer to cook. You just use a meat thermometer and make sure. But these are the ones we want because they stay perfectly tender in the middle and crispy on the outside. The thin ones are going to get overcooked and rubbery, so that's why we don't want to use the thin ones. So first thing we're going to do is pat them dry, because we want the seasonings to stick. First salt and pepper, and then 3 layers of seasoning. So, and you do this with chicken too. So when you're breading pork, poultry, and seafood even, pat it dry and you'll have a much better stick. So just a paper towel, nothing fancy. Get both sides. And I pulled these from the fridge about 20 minutes ago, just so they're not freezing cold when they go into the pan and then ultimately into the oven. This is a 2-step process. We do a pan sear, and then we take the pork chops to the oven so they can finish cooking without overcooking, because pork, when it's overcooked, is no fun. Okay, so we'll set these aside. They're patted dry. We're going to do 3, let's make sure you can see all 3 different stations, basically. So the first station is going to be all-purpose flour, 1/4 cup. This is, if you've breaded anything, you're familiar with this process. Second layer is egg, just one whole large egg. I'm going to get this the shell out. Can you see that? Yep, we're just going to give that a little fork whisk. And I like to use room temperature eggs in everything, in baking, in dishes like this, because I don't know if you noticed, but it came together very quickly. The yolk and the white commingled very quickly. And when I was doing the prep for this class, and I was doing like a whole batch first, so you can see what it looks like finished, I used a cold egg because I pulled it from the fridge, and I just kind of went to work, and it did not incorporate this easily like this. So just a little tip. Same with cake batter, brownie batter, cookie batter. Eggs, room temperature eggs are always the best. Okay, so this is our crispy layer. I'm going to make it so that you can see the crispy layer better, because now you know what the pork chops look like. Any questions yet? I'm here. Remember, I love them. Okay, so the crispy layer, I have 1 cup of panko breadcrumbs. If you want to make a gluten-free dish, you can use gluten-free flour, gluten-free panko. There's so many great gluten-free options these days that taste just as delicious as regular, and they crisp up and everything. Gluten-free products have come a really long way. Then we're going to do, this is kind of like a secret ingredient because it's not often seen in a breading, but it's grated Parmesan cheese, 2 tablespoons, or a little more if you like parm. I love it because the cheese not only makes a great coating, but it caramelizes in the pan and gets a wonderful nutty flavor. So it's fabulous, fabulous in this topping. And this topping also would be great on chicken. Okay, then we have a teaspoon of oregano. You can measure. You can also use just the palm of your hand. If it fits in the palm of your hand, it's usually about a teaspoon. I'll show you what I mean. So that's usually a teaspoon. You can test it with your own hand and see, and you'll probably be pretty accurate every time. And garlic powder. There we go. We're not going to do salt and pepper here. We're going to do salt and pepper directly on the pork. So this is all we need here. I'm just going to give this a nice little mix. No questions yet? Nothing? For me? I guess we have just gotten started. I also love to hear, what your favorite way to do pork is, or, what you have upcoming planned for the holidays, what you're excited to cook, what your go-tos are. I just posted a green bean casserole. It was actually in my column, and then I posted it on my website and blog today. I've never done the green bean casserole with the crispy fried onions and the gravy. I've never really done it, and it was pretty darn delicious. I did it with fresh green beans, no canned soup. It was a homemade gravy. And I brought it to my son in college, and I was like, I know I've never made this. It's like not our traditional Thanksgiving. He's like, oh, it's really good. It was really good. So it was fun. Okay, so we've got the breadcrumb topping. We've got the flour. We've got the egg. Now we can start coating the pork. First thing we're going to do, I mentioned that I was going to season the pork directly rather than putting it in the coating. Because, sometimes not all the coating is used, and there's going to be some left on the plate. So we want to make sure that we have the pork perfectly seasoned right on the flesh. So we got some salt, black pepper. I put there's Celtic salt in there, but really any salt. I prefer any kind of sea salt. Haven't bought iodized salt in a long time. We have plenty of iodine in our food supply that we often don't need to have it in our table salt. So let my little nutritionist comes out in me. So that's another thing too. You guys have any questions about nutrition? Bring that on. Happy to answer those as well. You're really quiet out there. I also like knowing where people are from. You can just chime in that way too. Okay, so we've got the pork seasoned, salt and pepper. First into the flour. And as I mentioned in the recipe, because these are thick 1-inch cut, 1 to 1.5 inch, coat the sides too. You want coating on every inch. Okay, so first the flour. Then you shake off the extra honey. Then goes into the egg. Don't forget to coat the sides. See this? There's something kind of comforting about breading like this. I don't know if it like reminds me of my mom or my grandmother, but it just does. And then let the excess egg drip off, and then go into that panko Parmesan cheese mixture. And again, we want to get the edges, all the sides, edges. I like to press the breading in to make sure it sticks. And I'm just going to do that 3 more times. See how that looks? Already you can see the crispiness of it, the chunky panko. That's why I like panko breadcrumbs, because they are they're like nuggety, right? Versus like ground breadcrumbs, traditional breadcrumbs. I love them. They're Japanese style. So we'll put this guy aside and we'll do the rest. So when I was prepping for today's live, I did all 4 of these like this, and then I popped them in the refrigerator. It was like 3 or 4 hours before I actually cooked them. So if you want to prep ahead, it's easy to do. Just get to the point where these are breaded, cover the pan, the plate with plastic wrap, and refrigerate up to 12 hours. In fact, it helps the coating stay on even better. You don't want the coating falling off in the pan. Okay. Get both sides and all the edges. This is a super customizable recipe too. So if you're not an oregano fan, I'm a huge fan of Italian seasoning. That's like a marriage of thyme and rosemary and basil and marjoram. You could use that. You could use parsley if you like. Many different ways that you can season these. The base is basically the garlic, onion, and Parmesan. And then any other herb you want to add, just go for it. Okay. Into the egg. So if this was bone in, you really wouldn't, you wouldn't change the process at all. They would just be bigger, and you would make sure that you use your meat thermometer when they're in the oven. Okay, that one stands up. Look at that. Look at that guy. He's ready for the pan. Okay, one more. I bought these yesterday, and they were in an 8-pack on sale. I was quite surprised. I got an 8-pack. I think it was $10, maybe less. So it's a super affordable dish. I already had panko. You just raid your spice rack a little bit, and this is quick, easy, and affordable. Oh, I see some questions coming in. Oh, they're going away. Where are they going? Maybe it's the questions are there and I can't see them. I may have to adjust things. Hang on. It popped up for a minute and then it went away. So let me bread this guy, and then I'm going to check and see if I can adjust my settings for you. Okay, look at that. Let's see if this guy wants to stand up. That's going to be good in the pan because we're going to want to brown all the edges, and we're going to want them to stand up like that. Okay, there you go. Wipe my hands and see where your questions and comments have gone. They were there on my screen, and then they went and they hid. So let's see if I can find it. I don't want to get all this in my. Let's see if I can reach. Oh. Okay. Oh, there we are. Okay, let me go all the way up. Where can I find you to look at your green bean? Oh, if you type in Robin Miller green bean casserole, that should work. Robin Miller cooks green bean casserole, that should work. It's right on and if you go to robinmillercooks.com, it's right there under latest recipes because it is the latest one I posted. So it's right on the first page, the very first one in the row of recipes. And I can't remember what it's next to, but I think it's something other holiday. So yeah, there you go. You got that. And then Dr. Martin, sorry, I'm late to the party. Do you brine the chops first? No brining needed. This is a super These are like loin cuts. They're super lean. There's no need to brine to soften the meat. They're super tender. As long as you don't overcook them, they're perfect every time. No need to brine. This is, in fact, this is the perfect, quick and easy weeknight meal because you don't need to brine. What other question? Okay. Sandra, nutrition question. I thought you needed iodized salt. Sea salt, etc., has no iodine in it, which then is not very good for you. Is this correct? So this is a huge thing now. Yes, we used to need iodized salt because we did not have enough iodine in our diets. That is 100% true, and that is why they started iodizing salt that you would find, like Morton, that you would find in the grocery store. However, iodized salt is used in many, many, many of the things that we consume daily. So to consume a packaged food that already has iodized salt, and then you're using iodized salt, a lot of us are having too much iodine. This is definitely something you want to talk to your doctor about, especially if you have thyroid issues. But yes, we used to need it, and now sea salt crammed with minerals that we're lacking in our diet. So I just bought a different one. I have Celtic salt, and I just bought another sea salt that's supposed to have even more minerals. There's Himalayan also. So I think balance is key. Moderation is key. We're getting iodine from plenty of other sources. But if you need, some people need iodine, like they have a deficiency. So I'm not a doctor, but that is the general way of thinking now, is that we get plenty from processed foods. We can enjoy the sea salt at home. Hope that answers. I'm moving over a cooktop. Let's get this guy over to get some oil hot. I love this little setup. Okay, so keep the questions coming. I think I got to all of them. And tell me where you're all from, too. I love knowing if you're from here or overseas. It's super fun. All right, so I am going to turn this burner on to medium high. The oven is already preheated to 400. I want to have that ready for you because these just get a quick pan sear. The recipe says olive oil. I like olive oil and avocado oil here. They're both great. The key is to just coat the bottom of the pan. So I called for a 1/4 cup, but you might need less. You might need a little more. So I usually just eyeball it to make sure that I have a good coating, because we don't want the chops to stick. If they stick, you're going to lose the crust to the pan. You want the crust on the chops. So like a good 1/8 of an inch, whatever that means for you. If it depends on your pan. If it's a 1/4 cup, if it's 3 tablespoons, really depends on your pan. So that's that. And I'm just going to let it get hot. And hopefully we got some more questions coming, because it's going to take me a minute to get my my oil hot. Mexico. Hello from Mexico, and from Spokane, Washington. Hello, Spokane, Washington. This is the time for all of us to unite again. I love hearing. I'm actually kind of glad that we're at a state now where we can all be friends again. I saw a great post. It was just like a bunch of beers joining. You probably all saw it on social media that said, we're all still friends because we're all still friends. It was like a great saying, which I love, that, since we kind of felt divided, that we don't feel divided anymore. Linda, please don't be offended by this question, but isn't it risky working with raw pork and touching other items like salt, pepper without washing your hands? Thanks. I really do want to know. Yes, you should wash your hands. Chicken, pork, beef, seafood, yes. Ideally, I would have gone back here and washed my hands. And I'm definitely going to wash my salt and pepper before I touch them again, use them again. But if you notice, I don't know if you watched my Food Network show, but we would actually spend an hour just getting video of me washing my hands, because I often didn't do it on camera because I was working and looking to camera. So at the end of the day, we would do a bunch of videos of me washing my hands, so that you would know that is what you're supposed to do. You are supposed to wash your hands after you touch pork, chicken, seafood, any meat. So yes, good question. I'm not offended. It's only because I'm doing live, and I promise I'll wash my salt and pepper shakers, and I haven't touched anything else. Let's see. You are from Guatemala, Central America. Welcome. Welcome. Toronto. Nice to see you from Toronto. I just made 2 friends, one from Guatemala and one from Toronto, last week in Barbados. So, well, actually, Toronto friend is from Montreal. But yeah, welcome, and thanks for joining. Bring me your thoughts on what y'all doing for the holidays and what you like to cook on a quick weeknight when you like don't have a lot of time, you don't want to use a lot of ingredients, what you like to get to the table in 30 minutes or less. That's kind of always been my mantra, and that's when I was a busy mom and I was doing Food Network, my quick fix meals, that was my lifestyle, getting healthy meals to the table and also still making it to soccer and track and all those things. And now that my kids are in college, I still want dinner on the table in 30 minutes or less. So I have time to, have a free night or enjoy my company or enjoy my friends, enjoy my family. So healthy, easy weeknight meals, still my mantra. I'm all caught up with questions. I'm going to tell you, in case you don't know, how to test your oil. So you don't want it, if your oil isn't hot enough before you add the pork chops will absorb too much oil and be soggy. If it's too hot, the outside of the pork chops will over brown, potentially burn before you hit the oven, and then they're going into the oven already over seared on the outside. So the best way to tell is you take a little crumb from your breading, like your panko breading, and you put it in the oil. So see if I can I don't know if I can show you that. So what you want it to do, I don't think you can see it. So what you want it to do, you want to drop the crumb in there and you want it to bubble. You don't want it to lay flat. It kind of just laid flat. It didn't really do anything. You want it to start to bubble and bounce around in the pan. I literally just did this in Barbados last week. We made classic Bajan fish cakes. They're like little fish balls. And the way the chef showed us to test the oil and it was deep fry, before we put the fish cakes in, was he took a little piece of the batter and he threw the batter in. And when it started to bounce around and turn gold brown, that's when the fish cakes went in. So we're going to wait because the last thing I want is a soggy pork chop exterior. I'll get another crumb ready. We have hello from Uruguay. Is that what it says? Montevideo. I bet you I butchered. I'm sorry, but it's a lovely sounding Montevideo. And you made pork chops. Somebody made pork chops today with a coffee rub. Oh, that's a good idea. I don't think I do enough coffee rubs. That's a really good idea. Love that, like a smoky quality. And I wonder if they were bone in or if they were like these thick cut center loin chops. Okay, wish I could show you this. We've got bubbles going around that little drop of panko that I put in there. So the chops are ready to go in. Oh, see, you can even hear it. That's when your oil is ready. Yeah, I should have a microphone right here. And they all will fit in the pan nicely, but if you have a smaller pan, try not to crowd them because you want the edges to get brown and everything. They are going to go to the oven. While I'm thinking about it, if you don't, I'm using an oven-proof skillet because it goes from cooktop to oven. But if you don't have an oven-proof skillet, you can still start the process this way, then transfer the pork chops to a shallow baking dish to finish in the oven. We have somebody watching from Arroyo Bay, California. I may have said that wrong too, because let's see if I move that little so I can see where the cursor was right in the middle of your comments. Watching from Morro Bay and from Connecticut, love pork chops. And I love Connecticut also. I lived in Connecticut for a little while in my younger days before I moved to New York for a big chunk of my career. Let's get this over here. Okay, so we're gonna not move. Oh, I can smell the Parmesan and the garlic. That alone would be the reason to make these, just the aroma in your house. People walk in, oh my gosh, what's for dinner? Parmesan, garlic, onion, and oregano, all in the crust. Fabulous. See if you can't really, well, I'll show you when I flip them. Any questions, comments coming in? Because we have time. We don't have time in the breading, but you could put it in the bread. So this is great. We don't want it to go, we don't want to burn the crust on the outside. So as I mentioned, look at that, that's beautiful. I'm going to get it a little bit more golden, and then I'm going to turn the sides. So we want to get all the edges and each side so it's all golden and crispy and seared on the outside. love that sound. My Food Network show, they had a microphone attached to the stove. So if you heard like a very loud sizzle, that's why, because it was meant for you to hear. The microphone was right there. Watching from Littleton, Mass. All right. Oh, hi, Kim. I know Kim McLeod. I'm glad I can see. Well, I moved the cursor so I can see who is actually the people's names. Thanks for tuning in. All right, let's give this a flip. Golden brown. Love it. See that golden brown? Beautiful, beautiful. And I know people will say that it was kind of the question, like worried about touching pork, but also eating pink pork. Absolutely, the days of worrying about that are gone. The safety standards for pork have evolved beyond what you needing to worry about eating it pink. And if when eating pink, it's tender, buttery. You can cut it with a fork instead of a knife. I did a pork tenderloin recipe, herb crusted pork tenderloin recipe for my column, and it was super pink on the inside. And I knew when it hit the stands that a lot of people were going to write into the paper saying it's underdone, and they actually did. But I was ready. I had a whole, I had quotes from a whole bunch of different chefs that were, said how to cook pork, the temperature. As long as you're using a meat thermometer and get it to the right temperature, then that's what you need to worry about. Not really the color, it's the temperature. So while I'm talking about that, I'm going to use this. After the pork chops have been in the oven for about 10 minutes, it's an instant read meat thermometer. They're super affordable. If you don't have one, grab one because you're probably going to need it all during the holidays. Check your turkey, check your prime rib, which is on the docket for me to make for my column. Super useful. I just open it up. We want this to be between 140 and 145 degrees. You're going to want your turkey at 165. So I love them. It's got a magnet. You can put it on your fridge. We have any more? Nope, we don't have any more questions. I'm doing okay. I'm keeping up. So now I'm going to turn these on their sides. Get all the sides, because there is the one side with kind of a strip of fat. So we want to cook that off. They're all standing up like soldiers. I don't think you can see that. So tempted to grab the camera and just look at it in a minute. It's not like when I shoot for my classes for Craftsy, there is a camera right here that gets all the good stuff. I don't have that today. All right, that side's good. Just going for a little bit of color. We're not cooking them through. What is the internal temp for the chops? The internal temp that we're shooting for is 140 to 145. And as you may or may not know, when you remove meat, chicken, pork, steak from the heat, it continues. There's called carryover cooking, and the temperature goes up by about 5 degrees after the meat is off the heat. So that's, if you want it to be 145, you take it off at 140. If you want it, that's pretty much the goal. So same thing with your steaks. If you want them at 140 or 145, you take them off 5 degrees before your ideal temperature. You'll never overcook steak again if you follow that rule. We have medium or low heat. Right now, I have it on medium high. So between medium and high, right in the middle. Everybody's stove is different. This has the number 7. It goes up to 10. So 7 for me, but I have a dial over there. It doesn't have numbers. So if you flame, it's medium high. If you can hear the oil, you just want this to be getting golden brown and not overcooked. We're just going for a little bit of color. We're not cooking the chops here. We're finishing them in the oven. I'll show you. Let's see if I can get you a good side for you to look at. Drippy. But yeah. All right. So all sides are golden. Looking pretty good. I'm going to turn, and just to answer, I'll turn the temperature off, but just to, for the heck of it, let's see what the temperature is before it goes into a 400-degree oven. This must be 72 in my kitchen. So 72.3. The inside of the pork is 72.5. So we're going to take it to the oven and get it to 140. And it should take about 10 to 14 minutes. And that's it. That's all you gotta do. But I already have one finished. So I'll put that there. Move this guy over. I'll show you what I got. Let's make some room. We have another. Sandra asks, will using thick pork chops become tender? Most of the time I use thinner chops, so they will be tender, but would rather have thicker chops if they will get tender. And that's the whole thing. What I swear by is the thicker the chop, the more tender it will be, because the thinner ones tend to overcook. Thin chops are great for like a marsala or a lemon butter sauce or whatever, not a breading, because you want the breading golden, and you want the outside crispy and you want the inside tender. So thin chops are great when you're just going to do a quick little sauce. But if you want to bread your chops, which I highly recommend you do, then you get the thicker cut. 1 inch, 3/4 inch, give it a quick sear, follow this method, use your meat thermometer, and it'll work every single time. This is the one I made like a half an hour, maybe a half hour, an hour ago. You see that? I got a little fork and knife so I can dive in. I can't believe, did you see how quick this came together? I was chatting most of the time, and it's 3:31. That's a minute behind. 3:32 or 2:32, depending on where you are. Okay, so this was the one I did earlier. Look at that. Just like the picture, right? And I want to show you the inside. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. Slightly pink. Can you see that it's slightly pink, or does it look white on the screen? Because it's definitely perfectly cooked. For me, to get to 140, it was about 12 minutes. So my oven was at 400. I put it in, I checked it at 10, wasn't quite there. At 12 minutes, I was at 145. That's perfect. Let me cut into a different one. These are gorgeous. Oh my gosh, everybody's gonna love these. And plus, you can make them tonight. You could literally make them tonight. Look at this one. I don't know if it's gonna show how perfectly cooked on the, with the lighting in here, but it's thick, it's juicy, beautiful, crispy exterior. And again, I used avocado oil, but if you're a fan of olive oil, that absolutely works too. Something with flavor, because that is going to season the outside of the pork chops. The panko is going to absorb the oil as it cooks, so you want it to be a good flavor. And I love avocado and I love olive oil for this dish. No more questions there. Let's see. Got that one. That's the whole recipe, you guys. Literally, my crispy pork chops are finished, and I did a lot of chatting, start to finish, and you can get them to the table in just as fast. And what would you serve on the side with these? I would serve, if you like buttered noodles, like kind of this time of year, I love things like buttered noodles, fluffy rice. Big fan of basmati rice these days, with a little bit of butter, steamed vegetable, or roasted vegetable like broccoli or cauliflower, or stir-fried veggies while the pork's in the oven. You could throw together I have a huge thing of stir-fried veggies over there. I did while these chops were in the oven. So that would make a great marriage of flavors. But because I feel like pork chops is kind of like a comfort food. Mashed potatoes would be fabulous, couscous. And I mentioned how you could prep ahead. So you could get the pork chops all breaded, put them on a plate, put them in the fridge for up to 12 hours. Then when you're ready to cook, pull them from the fridge for like 15 to 20 minutes before you saute them in the pan and take them to the oven. That way they're closer to room temperature, not freezing cold inside when you start cooking, and they'll be, perfect every time. So that's that. What other questions do you have for me? Or tell me what you're going to be doing for the holidays, or how you like to cook your pork, or food allergy stuff. I'm doing all kinds of gluten-free, dairy-free, soy, egg, nut, and seed-free stuff these days. A lot of people are doing kind of a modified paleo, like an AIP diet. So I have all kinds of different ideas for ways to do that. It's not easy and it's usually temporary, but it can be a challenge. So I have lots of insight there. And if you think of anything, you know where to find me on my website. Hopefully the person who asked for the green bean casserole found the green bean casserole on the first page of my website, because it's front and center there and it's that time of year. And if you're a fan of pumpkin pie, that's coming up tomorrow on my front page of my website. That, and what is left for, I did my cranberry sauce, all the favorites of the holidays, no matter what you celebrate, even if it's just Friendsgiving. It's, I just love sharing those recipes that people find easy and delicious. Monica mentioned that baked beans do go well with pork chops. I think it's all part of that comfort. Baked beans, mashed potatoes. You don't need gravy with these, but if you're a gravy fan, like with my son, if I serve mashed potatoes, there needs to be gravy or he would move out probably. So there's always gravy with the mashed potatoes. You wouldn't need it here, but they pork chops and gravy, right? And applesauce. That's another one. Sending hi from Colombia. Hi, Rosemary. Sorry if I didn't mention your names earlier, but the cursor was blocking all of your first names. So, but thanks for joining, Rosemary. I met some great people from Colombia just last week. Jose, what seasonings do you use? Seasonings that I used in this, super simple. I used panko breadcrumbs and Parmesan cheese. Oh, I wanted to mention the Parmesan cheese because, as I say in a lot of my recipes, preferably freshly grated, but that doesn't mean you have to get a block of Parmesan cheese. I bought this, you can see I go through it. I bought this from the grocery store. They freshly grate it. I go through it a lot. I have another one of those in the fridge. You go in, you scoop it your couple of tablespoons, and you have freshly grated Parmesan cheese. Of course, the block is fine too. So back to Jose to answer your question, I used panko, Parmesan cheese, onion powder, oregano, and garlic powder. And that's it. But as I mentioned too, you can, there's many different ways that you can make this. If you don't like garlic, you leave it out. If you don't like oregano, you can use a different seasoning blend or basil or parsley or thyme or rosemary or sage even. So there's all different ways that you can customize this. If you open your cabinet, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm out of oregano, or out of something, just swap something in. You can make it different ways moving forward, and it can become a regular part of your repertoire because it'll be a little different every time. Dried parsley in here would be great. You can garnish with parsley at the end. Monica says applesauce. I hope that answered your question, Jose. Monica said applesauce on the side and on, a dollop on top, that because you have the creamy applesauce and the crunchy pork chop. That'd be so good. Dr. Martin, got to get back to work. Thank you for coming. Thanks for joining. I do. And Sandra, thanks for, sure, of course. I love the questions. You can tell I was begging for them as we started, because I feel like I do love sharing my recipes, but if I feel like you're learning something and getting it more for a personal experience, that makes it more rewarding for me to hear your personal questions and know that I maybe helped in some way. That's what I do it. That's why I do it. So yeah, bring on more. I'm not going anywhere. We can hang out. If not, the recipe you have, the download, you can also find all the recipes of mine. I post every day, multiple times a day on my website, Robin Miller Cooks. And on my website, you will find all the links to social media. I post multiple times a day in social media as well. All the usual ones. Videos and content and that. So you can find some inspiration there. Belle, will this work for chicken thighs or drumsticks? Will the recipe be different in any other way? I would say boneless. No, I think you could do bone in, actually. Yes. So I think definitely both thighs and drumsticks, even chicken breast. But as I mentioned early on, pat the meat dry. That way the coating will stick. So you have your chicken thighs or drumsticks, pat them dry. You do the flour, the egg, this breadcrumb mixture, pan sear, and then take it to the oven and go to 165, not 140 or 145 for pork, but 165, even 160, because it's going to go up to 165 to cook your chicken. And it'll be perfect. Yeah, it'd be great. Drumsticks, some of the coating might fall off as it rolls around in the pan, but I think it'll still be fabulous. Thighs for sure, the coating will stay on better. But I say go for it and let me know how it goes. Because I've done very similar breadings like this on thighs and breasts. Drumsticks I need to hear about, but I can't see any reason why it wouldn't work. And if it's bone in, just make sure you use a meat thermometer, get to 165. Jose said, how long do you usually cook? Pork scares me because of the whole tapeworm thing, if not cooked well. So I did mention that the safety standards for pork, in fact, this is like not even new, because when I was back working for Family Circle magazine, like 15 years ago, the Pork Council educated us that pork, and it wasn't, well, it was trichinosis or whatever the old fear was. They educated us that the pork standards are far beyond any level of risk that we need to be worried about for undercooked pork. And people were always overcooking pork because they were scared, and they were like, well, I don't like this dish, and they weren't buying or making pork dishes anymore. So we were educated that pink pork is safe to eat and better. It's just more tender, it's more flavorful, it's juicier. The key is to get it to 140 to 145. But that's not for tapeworm issues. That's just for all food safety issues, to cook meat to a certain temperature. So you can do some research on that. But I do know that it was like an uphill battle for them, because, as imagine coming back from, when you've improved your food safety standards, and then it's just the old, just like eggs had the bad rap for their cholesterol for a long time. Now they're kind of back in favor. So you can do some research on that, and definitely don't be shy about cooking it pink. You'll enjoy it much, much more, and you'll be making it more often. So yeah, I hope that answered the question. Yeah. I get it with chicken. Chicken I get. That needs to be fully cooked, 165. Yeah. More questions for me? I know the first thing I'm going to do after is wash my salt and pepper shakers, thanks to your comment that I had touched the pork and then touched my salt and pepper shakers. I do it every day, especially if I'm doing a show. Yeah, so no more questions for me. Anybody want to share what they're cooking for the holidays? Maybe give me some inspo. Love to hear. And if not, again, I told you where you can find, well, you know where you can find this recipe and all the details and all my tips and tricks. But if you have more questions, you can reach out to me through my website. I have a contact form. I get all those emails. I respond usually within the same day, especially if it's food. Sometimes people will write and say, I have this on the stove. Can you write right back? So I try to kind of be alert and get your messages. So if it's timely and you're trying to make something for this evening, you have my answer in time. So robinmillercooks.com, there's a contact form, and then all my recipes are there. A lot of holiday stuff's going to start coming up. Today was the green bean casserole. Tomorrow's pumpkin pie. I already did mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. And then I have a baked brie and a potato board and all these fun things as we get into like entertaining and having gatherings, whatever holiday you celebrate. Just have, even if, game day. I have a lot of fun ideas for what to serve your friends and family and the little ones too. Belle said, thank you for a wonderful class. Thank you. It's silly. It was so easy, but sometimes that's what we need, right? Especially this time of year. Jose, what are good ideas for turkey stuffing? I have a bunch on my website. I am a classic girl. I don't do sausage. I don't do oysters. I have a classic bread stuffing that I've started now doing on the side as a dressing. Sourdough bread, onions, celery, tons of sage and other herbs, and loaded with chicken bone broth. I do it on the side. It's not in the bird anymore. It's a lot easier that way. And I just fill the bird with apples now. But I love that. And that's on my website. If you want to check it out, I think the sourdough really takes it to a new level. I have some cornbread ones. But I'm kind of I do the ones that my mom did growing up, and she just would do, I put apples in mine too. So I do celery, onion, apples, sourdough bread, chicken bone broth, and tons of sage and some other herbs. It's easy. Everyone loves it. Non-meat eaters eat it, so it's great for the vegetarians in the crowd. Highly recommend that one. Pam cooking the traditional Thanksgiving dinner. Yay. I cook the traditional Thanksgiving dinner every year. It's the one thing I don't waver from. And I think if I did, my kids will boycott me because I think they expect the mashed potatoes, the gravy, traditional turkey, that stuffing I just mentioned, pumpkin pie, even though mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, and the cranberry sauce in the can. Even though I just posted a fresh cranberry sauce and it's fabulous, if I don't have the one on the can, in the can, with like shaped like the can, it's like rebellion. So I think that's what it's all about. It's those comforting memories when you put that food on the table and the aroma is like what you remember from 20 years before. That's kind of what it's all about. I mix it up at Christmas, but Thanksgiving's very traditional. Might add one like new thing per year, but all the rest stays the same. Jose, he's getting hungry with this live. Yeah, then it's working. That is the point. And we're approaching dinner time, so it's okay. It's okay. You got to get out and get some pork. Handful of ingredients, unless they're already in your pantry, and this can be on the menu tonight with some butter noodles on the side. I think that says applesauce with pork chops. Yes, I think that says vivifer. I'm not sure. Sorry about the pronunciation of the name. But yeah, applesauce and pork, because I think the sweetness, they're just a natural affinity, the tender meat and the sweetness of the apples. And doesn't that kind of scream fall to you? Pork chops and applesauce. That would be great with this. It would be really good with these pork chops, especially because they're crisp and applesauce is smooth. And I always try to balance like sweet, savory, crunchy, smooth. The palate really enjoys that when you balance and have like complementary flavors and textures. Kim says, thanks. My kids feel the same about the canned cranberry sauce. And she wants to know if I have any sides that can be made ahead and travel well, 3 to 4 hours. So my mashed potatoes travel well. My roasted sweet potatoes travel well. I do make a fresh cranberry sauce that what I did, and if you see it on my website, I made this fresh cranberry sauce for my column. And because it's not Thanksgiving and I had this fresh cranberry sauce last week, I used it to braise turkey meatballs. They were turkey and feta meatballs, and the salty and the sweet, it was so great. And that is a great appetizer. So they were turkey meatballs braised in cranberry sauce. So yummy. But yeah, I think what other sides? The green bean casserole doesn't really, I don't think that travels well. Cornbread, fabulous to travel. Any kind of dressing or dressing that you would serve on the side. And I do have a skillet cornbread that I posted that in my national column, and it was made great reviews. So that travels well. You can bring the cast iron skillet to wherever you're going. But yeah, I mean, I think all those things, all Thanksgiving sides travel well, I think, except for the green bean casserole. And that's because the gravy, it can separate upon reheating, and the crispy onions they're not crispy anymore because they soaked up the gravy. But there's always a way. I feel like there's always a way. Desserts always travel well. Also, pumpkin pie. Yeah, it's fun. It sounds like you're traveling somewhere. I think that's super fun. I'm gonna stay put, and people are gonna travel to me. But I travel. I bring food to my son in college almost every week, so I kind of have a system down for how what I can pack, how I can get it ready, so that it can make it 3-4 hours. So yeah, it's exciting. It's a fun time of year. It's late this year. Don't you feel like Thanksgiving is late, like a week later than it normally is, which is maybe good to give us more time to get ready. But yeah, I already have some decorations up. I don't know about you guys. A little jump the gun a little bit. Any more questions for me? Any comments? Anything for me? Maybe you'll get inspired. You go to my website. If you think of something, you can hunt me down through the comments, the contact section, and you can find me there. And if you don't have any more questions, I'll put this stuff in the fridge. Serve some with my stir-fried vegetables I have on the stove over there. I did stir-fried vegetables with coconut aminos. So that's my new thing. I've tried it. I don't know if any of you have tried it, but in trying to get less soy in the diet, I found coconut aminos taste exactly like soy sauce, and they're fabulous. So I went off on a little tangent, but I just looked over and saw all my vegetables, and I'm excited to try them. So yeah, Thank you very much for joining me. If there's no other questions or comments, I really appreciate it that you were here with me today. I hope you try this recipe or any of the ones on my website, on social media. I love when people tell me that they tried something and how it turned out. Sometimes I get a picture. I like that too. So feel free to reach out, find me, ask me questions, share your comments, share some pictures, and let me know if you tried this recipe for sure. And also let Craftsy know if there's anything else you want to see me make. You know, I have, I'm filming my 2 classes in January, so we have all that time to put recipes together for what you guys might be looking for. And then, you know, the next live, because I always like, you know, you want to give you what you guys are looking for. That's the whole point. So again, thanks so much. And I'm going to sign off. You know where to find me afterwards. Thanks.